Here's some additional techniques that you can use to hand carve wooden spoons. Now I picked these chunks of walnut, black walnut, up from the fire pile. These were cut-offs destined to be burned. And you can see they have a lot of issues, weird grain, knots, and they're just small pieces, but this kind of grain makes for interesting spoons. Even this piece with the crack. If you look, there's enough wood here with interesting grain that'll make a beautiful spoon. But today we're going to start with this larger piece. The grain's already showing us a shape for the bowl, and it goes right down the middle. That'll make a fine spoon. So we're going to mark the middle on the top, go to the other end, find the center of that grain right in the center of the arc and mark it there. It goes just about down the middle of this board. So we'll strike a line there. Then we'll give it a closer inspection. Now look right there. I don't know if you can see it, but look at how the grain plays in a circular shape. That would be perfect for the bowl of a spoon right there. And we'll have room on either side to save some wood for additional spoons later. Now rather than a straight handle, after we draw this bowl, we notice that the grain of this piece of wood kind of curves. So we'll follow that and let that grain show us how to design our spoon. Now I'm marking here so that I can cut off the wood that I won't need, and especially on this left side there'll be enough for a nice spoon. And this slender piece on the right side will be good for some smaller spoons. So it's to the bandsaw, and we will remove the wood that we will not be needing and just get it out of the way. If you don't have a bandsaw, of course you can remove this wood that we won't need any way that you'd like, with a table saw or a handsaw, or by whatever means you have and whatever way works for you. Now I have a bandsaw and I like using it, especially when I'm not working with green wood, when I'm working with wood that's already dried and that's rather hard. It makes it easy to get rid of all the wood that I won't be needing without having to carve at it or whittle it away. And just look how nice the grain is in this piece of wood. I'll mark what we'll be able to cut away from the top, and I'll want to show the relative position of the bowl on the side of this spoon blank. And it's going to be at an angle. I want it to come down from the tip towards the handle, and then I'll have the handle just glide back up in a nice graceful arc following the grain. This will help it to look its best and be a strong handle. And like before, we'll cut away the waste that we won't need over at the bandsaw. Right now we're just going to cut away the top because I want to leave square sides on this blank of wood so that it will fit securely into the bench vise and give me a stable platform to carve out the bowl. Now I'm not too concerned about following the lines that I've sketched on this blank, absolutely. I'm noticing more the grain and letting the bandsaw blade help me cut a smooth, graceful arc. The grain in this walnut is already beginning to reveal itself, where the bowl will be and the sweep up to the handle. Now there's the top on and there's the top off, and you can see why I wasn't too concerned with the initial sketch. It's just rough because I'm going to have to redraw it, and as I do now I have a much better picture of the grain. And look at that. I'm going to wind the handle around following the grain, and we are going to have a truly unique spoon. I'm also drawing in the margin I want to leave around the bowl and the edge of the bowl, and I'm going to give myself about 1/8 of an inch there. Now tightly into the vise, into the center of the vise, where I'll be pushing into the wood right at the bowl of the spoon. I think I'm going to begin with a pretty big gouge because the curve of that will match the size of my bowl and help me get smooth edges. The wood's pretty hard, so I'm going to use a mallet, and I'm taking my time to establish the initial shape of the bowl before I worry too much about digging into the wood. Right away I'm noticing that the wood carves nicely near the neck of the handle and at the tip of the bowl, but right in the center it tends to kind of tear out and pull away. So I'm going to be careful there. Noticing the grain, I'm not really smart enough to know exactly what's going on, but I'm smart enough to, when I encounter a problem, try something different. And it seems from the center of the bowl, cutting across that grain works better than going along with it. I've learned to listen to the wood, and it usually tells me exactly what I need to do. This is looking pretty rough, and I've still got a long way to go. But since the wood's so hard, I think I'm going to go to a smaller curved gouge that will be pushing through much less wood with each stroke and allow me to not have to use the mallet so much. Let's see how this works. Yes, this is going to be much better, and I'm taking out less wood with each stroke. I also have more control, and I'll make more cuts, but I'll be able to avoid a lot of the tear out that I'm getting with the wider, larger blade. The wood in the center of the bowl still wants to tear out and pull away, but I'm taking it easy, and I find that if I turn my blade around the cut as I make it, I get a cleaner cut across the grain. Again, I listen to the wood, and the wood tells me what to do. With this bowl, I'm working for a symmetry in the shape, and I'm keeping in mind the direction that the handle will take as it leads away from the bowl. Using the larger gouge again, I'm taking much less aggressive cuts into it, just trying to relieve the high spots from the scallops that the smaller blade made. Okay, our bowl's taking shape nicely, and I'm going to just continue to refine my cuts, taking away much less wood with each cut. Being concerned now, because I'm nearly at depth, to try and avoid tear out at all costs, because I don't want to create a hole that's too deep to recover from. I have a good thick chunk of wood here and a long way to go, so I have a pretty large margin for error. But at the same time, I know how deep I want the bowl, and I'm not making a ladle, I'm making a spoon. I'm cutting across the ridges left by the scallops that the gouge makes, trying to refine the shape of the bowl little by little as I get closer to finishing it. Now this black walnut is a hard, brittle wood. And see the roughness of the bowl and all the scallops? Well, this type of wood will lend itself well to using a scraper. And we can use the scraper at the same time to kind of gauge the shape of our bowl's interior, especially to check the symmetry of it as we go along. I think you'll be surprised at how quickly we can smooth out this bowl using this scraper. And with a good edge on your scraper, when we've completed the task, we'll have a smooth finish that's comparable to having sanded the wood already. The dark areas in the bowl are the depressions, and the lighter areas are the surfaces that the scraper has come in contact with. And if you're paying attention, you'll be able to see how quickly the dark areas are fading away as we work our way down to a common surface, a smooth, well-shaped bowl. And again, I'm using the rounded edges on this scraper to help me get a nicely rounded and symmetrical bowl to my spoon. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to use the broad edge of my rounded scraper just to check the symmetry and make certain that it's equal on both sides. It fits pretty well. As I flip it from one side to the other, it seems very symmetrical. A little extra time taken now, a little extra work with the scraper, will save a lot of time and a lot of work later with sandpaper. And I enjoy using the scraper much more than I enjoy using sandpaper. Look at that. That's a good fit. And as I flip it, it's a good fit that way too. It looks pretty nice, even, and smooth. We're almost there. I'm going to take a few more light passes with this scraper and get as smooth a surface as I'm able to, and then we'll move on. Remember where we were when we started using the scraper? Look at that. We got rid of all that roughness, all those scallops and ridges, and we're here now, all using the scraper. I'll turn this a little bit in the light so that you can see just how smooth the surface it is. Now I want to check the depth of my bowl again, where it is right now, as opposed to where I've drawn my lines on the sides of the stalk. It gives me about 1/4 inch. And I'm going to cut away a lot of this waste on the bandsaw again. So rather than use the hatchet, because this wood's too brittle, I don't think that would be smart. And rather than use the knife and whittle away for hours, the bandsaw will make quick work of this. And I'll follow the contours that I have drawn, but more importantly, I'm going to follow the grain as I see it. And the 3/8 inch blade on the bandsaw will help me to make nice, smooth, graceful cuts. I'm going to be very careful here around the bowl, trying to maintain my margin between the outer edge and the inside edge of the bowl, because as I sand and smooth this to its final finish, that edge will disappear. And it's better to have too much than not enough to work with. And I'm actually going to use this bandsaw to cut away the bulk of the wood that we won't need. And I'll save the whittling and the carving with the knife for just the last few millimeters of wood. And we'll complete the final shape with another carving tool that can be more aggressive than you might think, and that will be abrasive sheets. We'll start with an 80 grit and we'll work down to about a 400 grit. And good abrasive sheets can be a very good carving tool, as you shall soon see. Look at that. Our spoon is rising up out of this piece of wood. Now, I've demonstrated how to carve and shape your wooden spoon with abrasive sheets with sandpaper in my other two videos, and you can refer to them, but I'm not going to take the time to show that in this video. I'm just going to mark my shape along the sides because I've cut it off, and remove as much stock again as I can with the bandsaw, and then take to the abrasive sheets, beginning with an 80 grit sandpaper, and refine and smooth out the shape of my spoon. And here you can see I've already removed a lot of the bulk of the wood that's remaining with the bandsaw. And now I'm down to what I want to carve away with the knife. And I'm not going to waste your time with that, but I'm going to take you to here. I've kind of carved it out to as smooth a surface as I can, and from here on out I will use sandpaper, the abrasive sheets, to work my way down to a very smooth and refined surface. Now notice the ridge there on that curve on the side of the bowl. Watch how fast that this 80 grit sandpaper can reshape that side of the spoon and smooth out that ridge right there. It doesn't take long. This is a very aggressive carving tool, and keep that in mind because you can go too far too fast. I don't even like to get close to the absolute edge of my spoon's bowl until I'm somewhere around 150 or even 220 grit abrasive. This is the finished spoon. I've gone all the way down to 400 grit, and look how refined the edges are, how thin the bowl is, how graceful the shape is, and I've followed the grain and worked with it as much as possible, letting the wood tell me how to make the most beautiful spoon possible, limited only by my personal ability and any of the defects in the stock that I began with. And for a right-handed person, that curve in the spoon's handle there makes it very comfortable to use. And with that consideration in mind, take note that an opposite curve will make your left-handed friends very happy. Just look at the grain now, popping out, and the rich chocolatey color of this black walnut as we apply the mineral oil. It always amazes me when nature lets its inner beauty out and shows us just what an artist she is. What I love about spoon carving is that it allows me to use the cutoffs and wood that would commonly be thrown away or burned. Anytime we can reduce waste, it's always a good thing. And remember some of the smaller cutoffs from earlier in this video? Well, I told you we could use those to make small spoons, and a small delicate walnut spoon is no less beautiful than this large serving spoon. For me, this is a very enjoyable method of expressing my creativity while at the same time cutting back on the waste that would normally come out of my shop. Every time I carve a spoon, I learn something. Thank you for watching, and I hope you've learned something too.